On Sunday, April 23, 1995, the Museum of Broadcast Communication celebrated the 25th anniversary of Chuck Schaden's Those Were the Days. Special guests included radio's Little Orphan Annie, Shirley Bell Cole, Vic and Sade's Bill Idleson, legendary announcer Fred Foy, and the Those Were the Days radio players.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Introducing the founder and president of the Museum of Broadcast Communications, Mr. Bruce DuMont.
Thank you very much, Ken Alexander, and thank you very much for being here on this one of the most special days that the museum has ever presented. It is a special day, and it is a very historic day, for we gather today to celebrate the contributions of a remarkable human being to each of our lives, to the medium of radio, to the Museum of Broadcast Communications, and to the city of Chicago. And today is going to be a day where we also celebrate love and sharing and caring and also sacrifice. And I want to talk about each of those for a few moments. But today is also a historic day in that it is a national day of mourning for those who loved, who shared, and who, like many in the room today, were part of not only a family, but a family of Americans. And at this moment, I would like each of you to stand for a moment of silence for those who have lost their lives this past week in Oklahoma City. Amen. Thank you. In talking about love, we have a great lover here. You probably don't know that Chuck is a great lover. Somebody in the room might know that. But Chuck loves radio, and he has shared that love of radio with you for the last 25 years. He is also a person who has, like every person who loves something, there's a piece of him that he gives up when he goes on the radio, because he shares so much of his love with you. And for the past 25 years, he has sacrificed time with his wife and his family, who understand how much he loves radio, how much and how important it is to him, and how much joy they see that he receives from sharing his love of radio with you. So at this time, I would like to recognize one of the most special people and the most special person in Chuck Schaden's life, the person who for the last 25 years has kept a list of all the chores her husband has to do someday. While you and me and everybody else are doing our chores as part of that Saturday afternoon routine. Again, a very, very special person, Ellen Shaden. Ellen? And the rest of the Shaden family, the brother, stand up as well. The rest of the Shaden family, please do. The sharing that Chuck has done with you for the last 25 years, every Saturday afternoon, the museum is blessed that Chuck Schaden has been there from the beginning of the Museum of Broadcast Communications. And there is no one who's given more of himself to the founding of this museum than Chuck Schaden. And he did so on the first day, when he announced that he wanted to turn over to the museum for people to share every single day of the week and for generations to come his love of radio and the golden age of radio. And we are delighted to have that collection, an important piece of who Chuck Schaden is, that he has shared. There are a lot of wealthy people in the world, and they buy something important, and they put it in their home, or they put it under lock and key, or they hide it in the basement, or put it in the safe deposit vault, and in their minds, the price and the value go up. Chuck Schaden is a unique human being in that he has taken something that is precious to him and precious to millions of other people in the United States, and instead of hiding it in a basement, he has shared it with each and every one of us for 25 years on Saturday afternoons, and he will share it with future generations thanks to his donation to the Museum of Broadcast Communications, and thanks to your generosity over the last several weeks. That collection will be transferred, and it will be alive and well for generations to come because of the dedication, concern, and love of one man. And again, on behalf of the Museum of Broadcast Communications, let me say that we are honored to have Chuck as part of our family, just as he has been part of your families for the last 25 years. And now, without further ado, a man who is a lover, who has sacrificed for 25 years, and most importantly, who shares and cares about things we all hold very precious. Please welcome Chuck Schaden. There are several people who are unable to be here today, but I do want to read some letters and transcriptions of telegrams that were sent. Chuck, although I cannot hear your show from out here in Hollywood, I am well aware of what you are doing to preserve the golden age of radio. I wish I could attend, but cannot. Meanwhile, I extend my best to you and thank you for airing many of my vintage programs over the years. My special good wishes to Fred Foy, whose opening to The Lone Ranger stands as the classic sound of the era we love so well. Norman Corwin. Chuck, I wanted to add my congratulations on your anniversary. I speak for the thousands of people who listen to WBBM each night from faraway places, in my case, Washington, D.C. Again, keep up the good work for those of us who believe that radio will never die, especially with all the help you are lending to keep it alive. Dennis Daly, UPI Radio Network. And the third letter that I'm reading, Chuck, this is your day. We just wanted to say what a pleasure it is to work with a man who is not only Chicago's nostalgia guru, but also a fair and decent individual, a guy with a good old-fashioned, new-fashioned values. Congratulations, Chuck. Here's to the next 25, and this is the staff of Metro Golden Memories, Don, Lisa, Randy, Shirley, John, and David. And also, thank you, Ann. I would also like to present this as a token of the appreciation of the members of the Museum of Broadcast Communications. 25th anniversary, April 23rd, 1995. In appreciation of Chuck Schaden, who has kept the golden era of radio alive on Those Were the Days.
Thank you so much. Just before this was all to begin, my wife came over to me and said, "Remember, pretend they're all wearing their underwear out there." I can't tell you what it means to me to be able to have done this for 25 years. It seems like just yesterday. And that's really true. It sounds like it's a trite thing to say, but it does seem like yesterday that all of this started. Saturday afternoon was May the 2nd of 1970. Walked into a little station behind the Orange Crush plant on Lee Street in Evanston. And was doing 3 hours of old-time radio. The whole show was very heavily scripted because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to ad-lib my way out of a paper bag. And when it was over, I was exhilarated, but I got no feedback. I didn't hear from anybody. Saturday afternoon, May the 2nd, sunny day. Cubs were playing. Who was listening to a 1,000-watt daytime radio station out of Evanston playing old-time radio shows? Well, I figured for sure I had my mother and dad and my wife. At least I was sure about my mother and dad. A few weeks went by, and on the air I kept saying to people, "What would you like to hear? What would you like to play? Give us a call or send us a card or a note or something like that." And nothing. A phone call, maybe someone called and said, "Play Who's On First," and somebody else called and asked for something, but nothing. So I was beginning to think there was not going to be anybody out there and this was not going to last. But then about 5 weeks into the program, I decided to come up with a little program guide listing maybe 6 weeks in advance of stuff we were going to play. And I decided to offer it free to anyone who would send in a box top. Any kind of a box top. 400 box tops came in. And we were off and running. I knew then there were people out there, and over these 25 years I've been able to meet the people. And that's why it means so much to have you come here today to share in this. I felt the best way to celebrate 25 years of old-time radio is to do something with old-time radio, and that's why we're here this afternoon. And I have some very special guests who honored me and us by coming in to Chicago for the occasion. And I would like to have you meet them right now. If I put this here and sit on it, you know it's going to be bad. Our first guest did not come very far from outside of Chicago. She's lived here in this area her whole life, and she was one of the biggest stars on radio in a program that reached millions and millions of listeners from coast to coast. She's from the nearby suburb of Glencoe. I would like you to meet Shirley Bell Cole, radio's Little Orphan Annie. She's that little chatterbox. Coming from his home in the Pacific Palisades in California is the man who was in the middle between Vic and Sade. He's the son, Rush Gook, Bill Idleson. And finally, from his home in the Boston area, he's come in to be with us today to share with us one of the most famous voices from the golden days of radio and television, too. The longtime announcer for the Lone Ranger, Mr. Fred Foy. What a great opportunity. No cameras. What a great opportunity. I'm kidding. It is to sit down for a little time, to share some memories, and to talk about the days that we all love so much. Shirley, I'd like to start with you.
Okay.
Hello. You were broadcasting in Chicago. You were right from the beginning on Orphan Annie, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Now, how did you get the role of Orphan Annie? You were just a little kid.
Well, I had done radio work before Annie, and that went on for 3 years with the WGN Players. If they needed a child for the part, boy or girl, I was it. And then I lost contact with these people for a period of about 6 months. But in that 6-month period, they started auditioning for Annie and her sidekick, Joe. And they couldn't find me. They knew about me, but they couldn't find me. Ultimately, they did, of course. But with the benefit of the experience I had with the WGN Players, and the fact that I had the voice that they were looking for, that just kind of cinched the whole thing.
I would imagine you were a pretty good reader, too, weren't you?
I guess I was. You know, as a kid, you don't think of those things, and you don't say, gee, I'm doing a good job. Well, you just do it. And but apparently I did know how to read.
And then you stayed with Annie virtually through the run of the program, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Now, how did that affect your life as a child?
Well, that's kind of a sore spot, because as a parent and having my own family, I can see I had very strong feelings about my family finishing their education, and fortunately they do have talent, but I said, your talent's not going to disappear. Just let's do things in their proper order, and things worked out well.
But you didn't have that opportunity.
I didn't have that opportunity, no, because things were so different then. Chicago, all radio for that matter, was in its pioneer days, especially in the earlier days with the WGN Players. It was remarkable how talented a lot of people were, and the people that came into radio were people from the theater. They were very interesting, and they did all these character parts, men and women. This was the source of talent available.
Where did you live at that time?
Well, at the time I started on Annie, I was living on the south side of Chicago in the Hyde Park area. Later on, we moved north to around 3200, which was Belmont Avenue. And I lived up and down in that neighborhood over many years. I went to Nettlehorse School. I went to Lakeview High School.
Lots of famous Chicagoans went down to Lakeview High School.
I guess so.
Well, now, you were doing most of the Annie shows out of the Merchandise Mart?
Yes. We started originally at WGN,
Yes.
but when we went on the network, we worked out of the Merchandise Mart.
Now, did somebody take you to work every day?
In the early days, yes. But as time went on, you didn't have the worry about being out alone as we would be now. You used public transportation, buses, streetcars, didn't matter. There was no problem.
5:45, Little Orphan Annie. How early did you have to get there to rehearse?
Well, as time went on, excuse me, I must be nervous. We did an earlier show at 4:45 because the sponsor was interested in establishing 5:45 as Orphan Annie time. So 4:45 went to the East Coast, which is an hour ahead of us.
I see.
And then 5:45 was for all of Chicago area and the Midwest. Eventually, we made recordings that were shipped out to the West Coast, and so that time slot could be simultaneous.
You and Jack Benny had the same regular time slot over
How
all the
about
years,
that,
right? So if you were doing a show at 4:45 Chicago time, you must have had to leave school a little earlier.
Oh, much. I have many recollections of a teacher who didn't understand, and I'd end up in the principal's office explaining my predicament and that I just had to go. And the teacher kept shaking her head. We went round and round quite a bit. But it worked out, obviously.
And your grades were okay?
I hope so, yes. There's nobody to tell anymore.
Well,
You'll never know.
your mother couldn't say if you don't do your homework, you won't be able to listen to the radio.
Right. You got it.
Bill Idleson, you spent a lot of your early radio days in Chicago, too. And what was your first job here?
My first job was as Skizix on Gasoline Alley. In those days, WGN was doing all the Chicago Tribune comics, and Shirley was on first with Little Orphan Annie, and I think the next comic they did was Gasoline Alley. Although Haroldine came in there somewhere too.
Yeah, that was for WGN.
Yeah.
And then when did you, and how did you connect with Paul Reimer's Vic and Sade?
Well, it was after Gasoline Alley had gone off, and my father ran a tavern, nice name for a saloon, in Forest Park, Illinois. And Art Van Harvey, who played the part of Vic, used to drink there all the time. And they had just started Vic and Sade. They were on for about a week, I think, and they were talking about adding a son, a child to and they decided on a boy. And my father was telling Art Van Harvey about his son who had been on Gasoline Alley, and so I was hired on the spot. There was no audition or anything. They just told me to show up, and I did. That was it.
Not bad.
Yeah.
What was your salary on Vic and Sade when you started out?
For the first 2 years, we were unsustaining. My salary was $27.50 a week.
And this was in
32, I think, something like that, 32, yeah.
Shirley, how much did you make as an Orphan Annie
My
actor?
first paycheck was $50 per week.
Wow.
Boy, you were lucky. Money.
Well, she had a sponsor now.
That's right, Ovaltine.
And all the Ovaltine you could drink, I suppose.
But I want to say one thing. When I had been listening to Shirley before I got into radio, and when I came down to do Gasoline Alley, there was Shirley Bell, and I'd been listening to her, and you know, it was I was so thrilled to see Little Orphan Annie. My God, I went home and told everybody.
There wasn't anything between Orphan Annie and Rush Book, was there?
There wasn't time.
But there's nobody left to tell about it, is that?
We had an advantage, don't we?
Fred Foy, your career basically took off out of Detroit, Michigan,
Detroit,
didn't it?
Michigan, right, yes.
Was it at WXYZ, your first radio job?
No,
in
I
Detroit?
started at a little 250-watt station, WMBC in Detroit, and then moved up after time to the staff at WXYZ, and then went off to service, came back to XYZ, and it was in 1948 that they auditioned everybody on staff in town and from out of town, and I won the lottery for the Lone Ranger, which was wonderful.
See, that voice is not at all familiar, is it? So you were doing other announcing at WXYZ, or
Oh, yes,
acting, or what?
I was on as staff announcer and doing all the normal things that a staff man would do at that time. We did men on the street interviews and news and some orchestra shows. In fact, I remember, you know, the old band remotes going down to the hotels and fronting the bands on the network.
Did you would go with an engineer from the studio,
Oh, yes,
right?
right. And
And
he
they
would
had
set up, and we'd go for a half hour from the Hotel Statler with whatever orchestra was there at the time. Not sponsored, but it was the the late night feed of the dance bands.
Those were the days.
Right.
Listen to that. Listen to that. Did you do more than one remote in an evening?
No, just
Just
one. Right.
Other XYZ staff people would be
That's
at other
right.
places.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Was there an announcer's audition at WXYZ?
Oh, yes.
And
Oh, sure.
did you passed it, obviously?
Well, I think so, yes. But they had, it was a typical, you know, and you'd go in, you didn't really know what was coming up, but they would have, you know, a sample. You would do classical lead-ins to classical selections and whatever, and then you'd read news and commercial copy and whatever, and I guess they would you know, give you a 7 or an 8 on the big board or whatever.
WXYZ was really a major independent radio station.
Yes.
From the early days, and it was instrumental in forming the mutual broadcasting system with WGN in Chicago and WOR in New York and one other station, and they formed the mutual broadcasting system primarily to carry the Lone Ranger throughout the
Yes.
country. What kind of programming did WXYZ have on a day-to-day or a weekly basis? I don't need a whole rundown, just a general idea.
There was the typical broadcast day, really. There was the morning show, then I remember we carried Don McNeil's Breakfast Club at 9, and then there were some local shows, and we had a little 15-minute things like where you could call in and win a buck or something by answering questions. It was the typical rundown of radio in those days.
But while many radio stations, especially in the 30s, had stock companies of actors performing dramas, what was it about WXYZ that made these programs, like The Lone Ranger and The Green Hornet and The Challenge of the Yukon with Sergeant Preston, jump out and go forward? What was it? What was the magic at WXYZ?
Oh, I guess the magic was the creators. I mean, the writers, number one, who had to make the great plots, and of course a wonderful group of actors that worked on The Lone Ranger, The Green Hornet, Sergeant Preston, and they were very talented. And you look back on those days, now that television is in force, and of course the movies were around then. But what I think you didn't realize, these actors had to convey everything with the voice. You couldn't, there was no facial expression to be seen or whatever. They were a great group of people, all over. I give them much credit, Chicago, wherever.
You had done a lot of acting outside of the radio work too, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Doing the theatrical things?
Yes, well, around town I would appear in this and that, and I guess the greatest thing that happened, they had an anniversary in Detroit, the 250th, a mighty spectacle outside at the University of Detroit, and it was Detroit from beginning to the present, and I was selected to play the role of Detroit wearing buckskins. This was my moment in the sun, believe me. That was a high point for me.
Well, it was a shame that you never got a chance to play the Lone Ranger, but there was Brace Beamer and the others. Or did you?
One time.
One time?
Yes, I did. Brace would travel, and when he traveled, they would record his scenes. The script writers would know in advance and write shorter scenes. Then we would go in early and record that show with his scenes, so that I never had a chance. I had been, Mr. Trendle said, we'd like you to understudy Brace. And I thought, well, this means I'll be doing, that's great. When he goes away, I'll be doing the part. It didn't happen because he recorded things. So actually what happened was that Brace, actually, instead of having to be in at 3, he would come in at 5 for production rehearsal, and I would read his material in the earlier run-throughs. So that's what it amounted to, until one day he walked in the studio talking like that.
You're a big break.
They said, you're on. So it was a thrill to play. One time I played the role of the Lone Ranger on radio, and that was a real thrill for me.
Do you remember the date?
Good question, Chuck. Unfortunately, no. I would have to look that up.
I assume, I hope, that you have a copy of that show?
Oh, yes. It took years to dig it up. I thought that finally, after I would talk to different people who were collectors, and they'd never ran across. And I figured, well, the show, because I played the Ranger, they didn't want to break the continuity with Brace, so it never went on the air. That was my feeling. And then, lo and behold, Spurdvac out on the coast received the job from the Rather Corporation to log and file all of the transcriptions of the Ranger. And lo and behold, one fine day, in the mail I receive a cartridge, and there it was, Fred Foy as the Lone Ranger. So I finally had a copy, which was great.
Well, now speaking on behalf of the archivists at the Museum of Broadcast Communications, we would certainly like to have that show.
I shall be most happy to see that you receive a copy.
Thank you very much. All right, did I do good? Did I do good? Bill or Shirley, did you ever do any acting on the stage outside of the radio work and things of that nature?
No,
No?
no. All I did were personal appearances as Annie in the Midwest for a couple of years.
Well, tell us about that. Where would you do that? Would you do that in a shopping center or in a
There weren't
theater?
shopping centers then.
No, that's right. That's right.
You're going way back, honey.
She'd made a personal appearance at the Jot 'em Down store, I suppose.
No, these were done at all the local theaters.
Uh-huh.
Each town, like Elgin, Aurora, Rockford, they all had their own main theaters. And they were in very good condition at the time, accommodated a lot of people for those times. And I went on this tour, so to speak, with a man named Quinn Ryan, which some people might remember. He was a sports announcer at WGN. And he would go on first, and then he'd introduce me, and I'd come out and sing my little songs and things like that, and that was it.
Well, what songs would you sing?
Popular songs of the
Popular
day.
songs?
Yeah, right.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Like, I can't remember. Doesn't matter, just popular songs.
How long an appearance would that be?
Oh, that'd be maybe for 1 or 2 days or evenings. That was all.
Oh, as part of the stage
Usually
show?
weekend.
Uh-huh. Oh, I see.
No, it had nothing, I don't think it had anything to do with the station. This was worked out with Quinn Ryan and my folks.
Oh, it was a little separate kind of a thing,
Yeah,
but you were
my-
billed as radio's Little Orphan
Oh,
Annie,
yes,
of course.
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Did you two ever work together, working in Chicago?
No.
You did see each other,
We
though?
knew each
in
other,
the-
but we,
In passing, Shirley'd come out of a studio, I'd go in one and say hello,
Hi.
but that's about it.
Bill, tell us a little bit about Paul Reimer.
It's hard to tell a little bit about Paul Reimer, because somebody said Paul Reimer was the only genius to come out of radio, and I believe that thoroughly. He was such an incredible man. It was all in his mind, and he had such an active mind. His hobby was like to go down to the train station and watch people get off the train. One of his hobbies. He was one of the only guys I knew that did mathematics on the toilet. But he had the most incredible imagination. It just staggered you. We used to read the scripts and break up. You know, it was one of the hardest things was at times to do the scripts without breaking up. They were so funny at times.
Did, you simplify this so succinctly here, but I know there's a million stories about Paul Reimer, and I remember once hearing a story about, well, I guess there was always a problem with timing in radio. You had certain amount of time, and the Vic and Sade shows were 15 minutes, and you had commercials by Crisco. Approximately how much time normally would be devoted to the show?
Well, it was a 15-minute show, and I don't remember anymore exactly what the actual dialogue was supposed to. When we were sustaining, the script itself was almost 15 minutes because there were no commercials. We just, but then later when we were sponsored, maybe 12 and a half minutes or something of show.
And he wrote all the scripts?
Wrote all the scripts. We were on 6 times a week to start with, Saturdays too. He wrote a different story every day for 12 years. Can you believe that?
And there, aside from the recurring characters,
Yes.
there was no continuity.
Three speaking characters.
Right.
3 speaking characters, and all the rest of them were just imaginary characters. I mean, we talked about them, and we had one-sided telephone conversations with them, but everybody said that they knew those characters. They'd never heard them speak, but they knew them intimately. You know.
Well, finally they brought a 4th live character on then, didn't they?
Uncle Fletcher, yes.
Clarence Hartzell?
Clarence Hartzell, and that was because Art Van Harvey became ill, and rather seriously at one time, and they thought they better have another male character, adult male character, and we brought in Uncle Fletcher.
Did Paul Reimer, in all those years of writing that show, come up with the full-fledged script, let's say a day or two in advance, so that you could read it over and have it ready for the broadcast?
They came in, he never did a script in advance, and NBC used to call us all in, call him in and say, well, we're going to fire you if you don't bring in your script 2 weeks in advance. He said, well, fire me. And it was an empty threat, of course, but he used to bring in his script when he felt like it. Once we did a script without seeing it before. Yeah, we got the script a minute before we went on the air and did it. And there were a lot of sound effects in it, too, and the man that was doing the sound effects was trying frantically to look.
Now, I know occasionally he would come up short as far as the time would be concerned.
Are you leading into something?
Yeah.
Well, it just so happens. You know, one of the big things in live radio was making the show come out exactly on time, because it was live. You couldn't like have a tape and edit it as an ad or anything, or cut it, or so the production guy made little notes at the bottom of each page of how many minutes you were into the script, and then from that he would give you either a speed up signal or a slow down signal, and if you were a little bit short, you could drag it out. Sometimes it was agonizing. He was in the controls. He'd go, oh! You know, but occasionally the scripts came in very short, like 2 or 3 minutes short, and then if Paul was around, he would run down the hall to the nearest available typewriter, and he would type a couple of extra pages. And it just so happens that I have one of those inserts, managed to save it, and Shirley's going to play Sade. Would you like to hear it? Yeah. Wait till I get my glasses on.
All right.
And the scene is, Sade comes to Rush's room to wake him up for school. That's the setting. Okay, whenever you're ready, Shirley.
Okay, Rush, here's your underwear. Hurry up and get into it.
Well, how do they make underwear?
How do they make it?
Yeah, how do they?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose they... I don't know. Machine, I suppose.
Sewing machine?
Oh, I expect. Here, give me your pajamas.
Here's the pants.
You're sitting on the coat. Up.
Squirt was telling me how you can send away for underwear. He read it in the magazine. All you have to do is...
No, wait. Here's clean stockings on the chair.
Uh-huh.
Now, what was it about Squirt?
Well, he read about a place where you can send away for underwear. You send them your size, and they send you the underwear.
Oh, what's so funny about that?
They had a real funny way of having you send in your size. You're supposed to put some water in your bathtub, and you make a mark where the water comes to, and then you get in the bathtub, and you make a mark where the water comes to then. No. Wait, I ain't through telling it. After you got the 2 marks in the bathtub, you put the bathtub in a crate or something. And you send it to the underwear factory. They figure out your size and they send you your underwear.
Oh, I've never heard anything so ridiculous.
Funny thing.
Oh, Squirt figured that out.
No, he read it in the magazine. And hey, if you don't want to send in the bathtub, there's another way to get your size.
What's that?
Well, you fill the bathtub clean up to the top, then you get in the bathtub, and you catch the water that spills over. And you send that in. And if you want loose-fitting underwear, all you got to do is add more water.
And he wrote that a few minutes before the
He
show.
wrote that instantly. I mean, ran down the hall and typed that out. So what can I tell you about Paul Reimer? I mean, there it is. There it is.
Certainly a genius.
Yes.
Fred, so many actors at WXYZ in Detroit appeared in those three shows, at least, that I mentioned, Lone Ranger and the Green Hornet and Sergeant Preston. And there was one man who was probably as famous as, his voice was as famous as the Lone Ranger and and Tonto, and he was this gravelly voiced character on the show. He played, I think, Thunder Martin and
Yes.
a number of other characters. Now, who was that?
Paul Hughes, a wonderful actor and a delightful man. And he was, yes, he played Thunder Martin, and he vied between outlaws and the good guys and the bad guys.
He'd play the banker sometimes.
Oh, yes, right.
You know, as you say, the bad guy. Or the good guy. No, I didn't. Now, I know you have just released a cassette tape and a CD
Right.
talking about your days as the announcer on the Lone Ranger program.
Yes, it's called Meanwhile Back at the Ranch. Fred
Yeah.
Foy remembers. And it was a labor of love. So many people over the years, fans have always, number one, asked me just what you were saying up here, that, we recognize all these voices, but who are they? Was that so-and-so? Was that? And I thought, well, part of this I would love to, because they were such a marvelous group of people, to identify them. And so I picked scenes out of different shows and identified as many of the voices that were heard often on the shows. And it includes a lot of my early beginnings. In fact, it has a gem in there. It's my first audition record.
Oh, really?
Yes, which would give everybody hope, And I have there's my first broadcast as the announcer of the Ranger. And of course, there's a scene from my role as the Lone Ranger, what we were talking about earlier. And it's a salute to Brace and to all of the actors, and it was just a great pleasure to do, and I've had so many wonderful comments about it from people in the business, and I'm very thrilled by it all.
Well, I knew that you had this, and I asked Fred if he would bring some of these along with him today, and outside of the ballroom later on, he brought a few CDs and a few cassettes, and if you want to get one today, you can get one, or you brought some flyers too, I think, right?
That gives the information where
And
you
could send for it if you don't want to pick it up.
Send for them, right.
Right. Okay. Bill, Shirley, are you selling anything today?
Give me a minute.
You want to go out for the typewriter?
I couldn't do that.
You folks have had wonderful careers. Fred, of course, on the Lone Ranger. He worked as the announcer sidekick for Dick Cavett on television for a lot of years. Did many things. Bill, in addition to his radio work, which in itself is monumental, he wrote a lot of scripts for television. He produced TV shows. He made a nice transition from radio to television. He wrote a couple of scripts for MASH. In the first part of the couple of seasons of MASH, you hear the guy on the PA system talking to the movie tonight will not be canceled, or Thursday is going to be canceled for lack of interest, or something like that. He was the voice. How did that come about?
Well, actually, I was producing a show called Anna and the King, which not too many people saw because it was opposite Disney. But our offices were side by side, Anna and the King and the MASH office. And one day they had to have somebody read these lines. Attention all personnel, the movie tonight will be so-and-so and so-and-so. And they knew I'd been an actor, and they said, "You want to read this?" And I said, "Sure." So I was the guy. And then when our show got canceled, when we got fired, I left the studio, then somebody else had to do it, so it wasn't there anymore.
If you ever watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, Sally Rogers has a boyfriend by the name of Herman Glimsher. That was Bill Idleson. Somewhat tied to your mother's apron strings in that
Yes,
role, right?
somewhat. Autobiographical.
He also played Hank on One Man's Family and a few other things. And on TV, the One Man's Family, he was Cliff Barber, right?
Cliff, yeah.
And Shirley, after she left the role of Little Orphan Annie, she had a role on Captain Midnight, didn't she?
Yes, well, this wasn't after Annie. This
same
was
time?
at the same time, right?
Oh my gosh, another 25 bucks?
Because, right.
Yeah.
Captain Midnight was recorded, so there was no conflict there. And I played the part of Patsy. There were two teenagers involved as Captain Midnight's assistants, helpers, whatever.
That would be on the Skelly Oil series,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Before Captain Midnight stole the sponsor from Little Orphan Annie.
Right, right.
And Ovaltine
That's true.
began doing a different
That
kind
went
of
on
shake-up.
for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, it's so wonderful that you folks came in today. And actually, you came in Friday. We had some rehearsals yesterday morning and again this morning. I really appreciate it that you all came down to be here on a special day for me. But it's not over, and I want to put you all to work. So if we can get these chairs kind of moved back a little bit, we'll clear the front of this stage and have some fun with old-time radio. Ladies and gentlemen, our two guests. This is a point in our program, in our rundown of the afternoon, that's called a warm-up. And I'm going to warm you up for our radio show. We're really going to do a radio show this afternoon. This is going to be a live version of our Saturday afternoon get-together, our Those Were the Days program. And it's mostly going to be broadcast next Saturday afternoon on our 25th anniversary show. And all these folks, members of the Those Were the Days radio players, we have well over 100 people throughout the metropolitan area who regularly perform radio scripts of the good old radio shows. And usually on the second Sunday of every month, one of the groups performs in the Radio Hall of Fame studio at the Museum of Broadcast Communications in the Chicago Cultural Center, at which parking prices are a lot less than they are around here. At any rate, the young man from the University of Illinois who helped encourage us to participate in these various reenactments of old-time radio shows is a fellow named Tom Turpick from Glenview. And Tom is here, and I'd like you to stand up and take a bow, Tom. Thank you. Thank you. He had a group going down at the U of I doing these old-time radio shows, and encouraged me to think about something like that for the Chicago area. And it's been going for, what is it? A little over 3 years now, and it's great. There are some members of the Those Were the Days radio players in our audience today. Would you folks stand up for just a second? Yeah, look, here we are. Oh, boy. They're all great. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge our Museum of Broadcast Communications production team today, Betsy Maneely, Chris Olson, and Michael Keeley. They're in the back. Just wave a hand, folks, and let everybody know you're here. Thank you so much. Kim Schaden is not in, I don't think she's here in the room now. She's out back working on something for after this program is over, so you're going to get some kind of refreshment after that. Silver still lives, so you don't have to worry you won't be getting any kind of a special burger or anything like that. My good friend Bruce DuMont preempted my introduction of my wife. I didn't know he was going to introduce Ellen to you, but she's here. My daughter Sue is here. Sue, stand up. Sue. Ellen, go ahead, stand up again. I know you. And our daughter Patty. Okay. Patty's husband Jim is not here today because he is at home taking care of 2 cases of chicken pox and 1 to be, I think, are my three granddaughters, Katie, Corianne, and Jenny, are all right on the cusp, or I should say on the scab, of the chicken pox. My brother, Ken, you may have heard me talk about him a little bit. Don't mention anything to him about what I have said about him. From Middlefield, Ohio, and his wife Margaret are here. Stand up and take a bow. Ken, Margaret. If you ever get into the Mesopotamia County area in Middlefield, Ohio, and you come across the end of the Commons General Store, he'll sell you all kinds of penny candy and Amish goods and all kinds of things. And if he's not there, one of his 11 children will be there. Do you know how many gifts we have to buy at Christmas time? They would pack up 2 lousy gifts for Sue and Patty. And they were packing boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. But it's been great, and I'm happy that you're here. On Saturday afternoons, you hear me talking about the people behind the scenes, and I'd like you to meet one of our engineers, a gentleman of distinction. They always call the engineers gentlemen of distinction. Matt Sonnenberg is here. Where are you, Matt? You're way over there. Stand behind Matt. Len Kunka is the newest addition to our engineering staff. Take a bow, Len. Thank you. And the chances are, if you check in with us on a Saturday afternoon and you call and you are speaking to someone with a very pleasant voice and a happy attitude, he's Larry Peters. And Larry, why don't you stand up and take a bow? Larry, try to print more clearly, please. Now, what we're going to do here is give you, as I said, a mini version of Those Were the Days. And one of the things we're going to do is the Orphan Annie song. But you know something? We have Little Orphan Annie here, right? Shirley Bell Cole is here today. Would you come up and sing the Orphan Annie song for us? Come on, come on.
Let's see, it goes something like this. 1 second.
Want to come down?
Yes, just a little, please. That's fine, that's good. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3, 4, 5. Who's the little chatterbox? The one with pretty auburn locks. Who do you see? It's little Orphan Annie. She and Sandy make a pair. They never seem to have a care. Cute little she, this little Orphan Annie. Bright eyes, cheeks of rosy glow, there's a store of healthiness handy. Mite size, always on the go, and if you want to know, Orf, says Sandy, always wears a sunny smile. Now wouldn't it be worth the while if you could be like little Orphan Annie?
Thank you, sir. Wonderful. And that's the real McCoy. Now we're going to put you on the radio, too. We want you all to sing the Little Orphan Annie song. Now we're going to sing it one at a time, starting over here on the end. Now you have the lyric printed on the back of your program, and when we go into our reenactment, we want you and all of our cast members to sing this song. Now if you remember the radio show, there was a male voice who sang this solo, but we felt, gee, we've got all this talent out here because after all, you are so talented, you know where to find 97.1 FM every Saturday afternoon. So we're going to let you sing the song at the very top of the Orphan Annie program. So when I introduce the show as part of our Those Were the Days program, then you're going to start to sing. But we think, because most of you are not members of the Those Were the Days radio players, you need a rehearsal. So Sue Baird is our chorus leader, and Sue's going to run through this with you. Now remember, this is being taped now, and it's going to be played next week. So there's two things that are important to remember here. You're going to be on the radio, so you want people to hear you, and I'm also assuring myself of 500 listeners next Saturday afternoon.
Do the intro?
Who's the little chatterbox? The one with pretty auburn locks. Who you see is Little Orphan Annie. She's any makeup hair. They never seem to have a care. Cute little she, this little orphan Annie. Bright eyes, cheeks are rosy gold. There's a store of healthiness candy. Fine size, always on the go. If you want to know, our says Sandy. Always has a sunny smile. Now wouldn't it be worth the while if you believe our little orphan Annie?
Yeah, very good. Well, I guess, are we ready in the control room? All set? I'm going to run over the script for a minute. Sorry. Okay, let's My father taught me that 50 years ago. Let's do it.
Hello out there in Radio Land. From the Grand Ballroom of Swissotel, Chicago, it's Those Were the Days, brought to you with fond memories by Metro Golden Memories, Chicago's showbiz nostalgia shop, and by subscribers to the Nostalgia Digest and Radio Guide. Now, stepping out of his hall closet with a trunk full of memories, and today celebrating 25 years of old-time radio, here's your host, Radio Hall of Famer, Chuck Schaden.
Thank you very much. Wow, thank you. And thank you, Ken Alexander. Welcome to a special program celebrating 25 years of old-time radio. For the next hour or so, we'll tune into some live reenactments of some of our all-time radio favorites. Our special guests are Shirley Bell Cole, Bill Idleson, Fred Foy, and Those Were the Days radio players. You're in for a treat as we tune in to Little Orphan Annie, the Bickersons, Vic and Sade, the Charlie McCarthy Show, and the Lone Ranger. So pull up your imagination and stay tuned. The show begins right now with this little drama from the mighty Metro Art Players.
How are you? That Shaden is quite a guy, isn't he? 25 years of old-time radio, and today he's still as enthusiastic as he was the day he started. And furthermore, so is his audience. Right, Tony?
That's right, Alvin.
You know, I'll tell you one thing about Shaden. If I were his boss, he's the one guy I'd never want to fire, like I did some other people. Well, now, I'm honored to have been elected chairman of the refreshments committee for this event, and as chairman, I suggested to the committee that we serve you folks after the show product of one of my favorite sponsors, Lipton's Chicken Noodle Soup. All you gotta do is add hot water and you got yourself a bowl of delicious, nourishing soup. But I was outvoted. They thought that cake and coffee would be more appropriate. So we got a gorgeous cake for you. It's a huge cake, as you can imagine it would have to be for a group of this size. You notice I say it was a gorgeous cake. Well, I'll tell you what happened. You see, I flew here from the east in my private plane, and we had the cake all loaded on board. We were just ready to take off, but I couldn't get the darn plane off the ground. It was too heavy, you see. There's too much weight on board. We had to jettison something, make it lighter. We had to make a choice. Either the cake or Tony had to go. Well, you see, rich fools like cake sometimes don't agree with me. But Tony here always agrees with me. Right, Tony? That's right, Arthur. So what we did, we left the cake on the runway there, so we got no cake for you. But we'll have a cake for you, rest assured. See, there's several of us old-time radio people on the refreshments committee, and I'm sure one of them will be able to come up with a cake on short notice. What I'm going to do, I'm going to call Henry Barber. He's a guy with such a large family, he probably has to order a cake for an anniversary or birthday every couple of days. He probably has connections. For him, the assignment should be easy, be a piece of cake. So I'll ask him to order a cake for us. I'm sure you'll have a cake guaranteed. So thanks so long. Remember, ABC, always buy Chesterfield. They satisfy.
We're going to begin our first broadcast on our 25th anniversary celebration today with a reenactment of Little Orphan Annie. Orphan Annie was a staple of radio from 1931 till about 1940, on the air for all those years by Ovaltine. Appearing in the role of the announcer, the role that was initiated, of course, by the great Pierre Andre, we have Roger Swearingen, who works as a clerk for the state of Illinois. He's from Cicero, Illinois, and he's a member of our Norridge and West Suburban group of Those Were the Days radio players. Mr. Silo is played by David Mann. Dave is a light assembly worker in Chicago. He's with the Chicago North group of Those Were the Days radio players. Mrs. Silo is Deborah Pining. Deborah is a member of the Taxpayer Services group. She's a Taxpayer Services representative for the Internal Revenue Service. She's from Villa Park and a member of the West Suburban Those Were the Days radio players. Joe Corntassel, who was played Shirley at various times, but occasionally by Mel Torme on, not with you, but he did play it, I guess, on the radio show. Anyway, Bill Obrish of Norridge is going to play Joe Corntassel. He creates art objects with a scroll saw, and he's, of course, with the Norridge group. And Little Orphan Annie is going to be played by the lady who created the role in the first place, Shirley Bell Cole. Incidentally, the director of Little Orphan Annie today and all of our reenactments this afternoon is Wally Swick. He's a management consultant and engineer. He's from Park Ridge. He's a member of the Northwest Suburban Group. He's one of the early movers and shakers of our Those Were the Days radio players. And as a matter of fact, I'd like you to greet Wally at this time because he's got a tough job today. Susan Baird, our chorus director, is a circulation manager for the American Osteopathic Association. So you're going to get our circulation going here with all of this, right? She's from the Edison Park area of Chicago and a member of the Northwest Suburban Group of Those Were the Days radio players. So now it's time to tune in. Let's go back into the 1930s. Let's be listening to that old Zenith console radio on the living room floor, you know, and let's have that nice shake-up mug filled with Ovaltine all ready, and tune in to Little Orphan Annie.
Well, here it is, 5:45 again, the time when you hear Orphan Annie before drinking your Ovaltine every night. Every time you treat yourself to Ovaltine, you're helping Annie too, because that's the way you help to keep her adventures going on the radio. And so, if you haven't had your Ovaltine lately, ask your mother to get you a can at your drug or grocery store right away. And remember, it's especially important to get that Ovaltine now, because then you'll have a chance to get that beautiful Orphan Annie birthday ring we've been telling you about. Boys and girls everywhere are sending in for their rings now. And everybody who sees this ring wants one like it right away. They just can't get over what a beauty it is, with its genuine gold-plated finish and its beautiful big birthstone that sparkles and shines like everything. And so, you certainly want to get busy and send in for your ring this very night. Be sure to keep listening after tonight's adventure is over, because I'm going to tell you exactly how you can get your Orphan Annie birthday ring if you get busy right away. But now, for our adventure. You remember last time we heard that Jake, the owner of the Emporium in Simmons Corners, is very sick, and he wants Annie and Joe to help him tend his store after school every day. But now, here it is, almost supper time in the Silo kitchen. There's Mr. Silo reading the newspaper, and Mrs. Silo is busy at the stove getting supper. And listen to what she says now.
What's the matter, Pa? Pa, what is it? What are you laughing at?
Oh, I just been reading this story about Mr. Caslin put in the paper about Annie's birthday party.
Oh, yes, isn't it nice? He called me up on the telephone and I told him all about it.
But did Annie see it?
Sure she did, Pa. The paper's been here since yesterday. My lands, where's your memory? She was talking about it at the supper table last night.
Oh, just mustn't have been paying much attention, Ma. I must have slipped by me entirely. I probably thought you was talking about the party.
Well, I certainly thought it was a real nice party, didn't you?
It sure was, Ma. Never attended a better one. Think the young'uns enjoyed it?
He must have, judging by the victuals they ate.
Sure made enough noise around here, too. Made enough for a couple of parties. Annie got some nice presents, didn't she?
Yes, indeedy. I'm glad, too. Made her feel good. Did you know that the day before the surprise party, she thought everybody'd forgotten all about her birthday?
She did, Ma.
She sure did. Joe told me.
Well, must have been a real surprise then.
Of course it was.
That birthday ring Mr. Warbuck sent her was real nice, wasn't it?
Was a beauty. That's what it was, Pa. Imagine it having a regular stone in it, too. Her birthstone.
Seems to me the young'un's pretty proud of it, too.
Of course she is. Any child like a ring, but a ring like that with her birthstone in it? That's something you don't see everybody wearing. No, indeedy.
By the way, where are the young'uns? I haven't seen them all afternoon. Ought to be getting home soon, oughtn't they?
Yes, indeed. It's most supper time.
Where'd they go?
Well, I'm not sure, Pa, but I got the idea they went to town.
I wouldn't be surprised. I give Joe a quarter yesterday for helping me fix the harness and clean out the barn. I got an idea. It's probably burning a hole in his pocket.
Well, they'll be along soon, I guess. They're never late for supper.
Yes, I suppose so.
Annie said something about seeing Mr. Caslin. That's why I think they went to town.
Well, I suppose the quarter helped.
Yes, indeedy.
I'll have to ask Joe what he did with it.
You do that, Pa.
Oh, hey, Ma.
What is it?
Look at Sandy. Look at his ears.
He hears somebody coming.
Tails are going, too. I'll bet you it's the young'uns.
I guess so, Pa. Who is it, Sandy? Is it Annie?
It's them, all right. Come on, Sandy. We'll go open the door for him. Yeah, it's them all right. Come on in there, you young'uns.
Hello, Mr. Silo.
Hello there.
Hi, Sandy.
Hello there, Mr. Silo.
Oh, hello, Mr. Silo. Are we late?
Hello, Mrs. Silo.
Hello, children. No, you're right on time. We were beginning to wonder, though, if you were coming. Weren't we, Pa?
That's right, Ma.
Well, we were in town. I wanted to see Mr. Caslin and thank him for that story he put in the paper about my birthday party.
I got an idea what you did something else, too.
What, Mr. Silo?
Bet you went to Ryder's drugstore and had one of them shake-ups, too.
You shucks, did somebody see us in there?
No, I just guessed it. Had an idea that's what you'd be doing now, didn't you?
Oh, yeah,
I knew it.
Well, but Mr. Silo or Mrs. Silo, is there anything I can do?
No, Annie, I've got the table all set. We'll be ready to eat in a minute.
Mrs. Silo,
Yes, Annie.
would it be all right if I don't get home in time to set the supper table for a couple of weeks?
Oh, that's right, Annie. Tell them about the big news.
Big news? Well, what's this? What's this?
You mean that you children are going to be this late coming home every day? Is Miss Clayton going to keep you after school?
You going to town every afternoon?
Yeah, that's it, Mr. Silo. We have to go to Simmons Corners every afternoon right after school. And on Saturdays, too.
Well, I declare to goodness.
Well, what's up now?
Well, we're going into business, aren't we, Joe?
Sure, we're going to be clerks.
And a lot of other things, too, I suppose.
For mercy's sakes.
Well, what's all this? What's all this?
Yeah, it's true, Mr. Silo. We're going to work at Jake's Emporium.
Say now.
Now, what's the idea of doing that, Annie? My goodness, you children are in school all day. You ought to have some time to play.
Leaping lizards, we think it'll be grand. Tending store? Well, that's something not every boy and girl gets a chance to do.
Well, I swear. Now, how in the world did you get around to doing that?
Oh, it'll just be for a little while, Mr. Silo, till Jake gets feeling better. He's sick, and he needs somebody to help him out. That's the reason we're doing it.
Is he really sick?
Sure. Why, Dr. Ridge can't even do anything for him. He has to go over to see a specialist in Sunfield tomorrow.
Well, what do you know?
Well, mercy's sakes, he must be sick.
He's supposed to rest every afternoon. That's why we're going to help him. We're going to look after the store for him every afternoon till he gets feeling better.
Well, that's too bad. Jake's a real nice fellow, too.
He's pretty sick, Mrs. Silo. He was in Mr. Caslin's office this afternoon, and, we had to help him back to the Emporium.
Oh, yeah, so you young'uns are going to be storekeepers.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a grand time.
Jake going to pay you, too?
Oh, sure he is, Mr. Silo. Of course, we can't expect to get a lot, because we don't know anything about business. I told him he should just give us what he thought we were worth.
You should have settled with him as how much you're going to get. He probably won't pay you near what you'll be worth to him.
Oh, we don't care about the money, Mrs. Silo. It'll be a lot of fun just doing it. And Jake's all right. Honest he is. I know he'll give us what we should have.
Gosh, just making any money would be fine.
And we can save it. And, yeah, we can use it to buy Christmas presents.
You're looking pretty far ahead, aren't you, Annie?
It's not so long to Christmas, Mr. Silo.
That's right, Pa. It's almost the 1st of November now.
Shucks, I think it'd be pretty nice having money of our own to get Christmas presents with.
Sure it would.
So you're going to be storekeepers. Well, that's quite a thing, all right. There's a whole lot to run in a store. Most folks don't appreciate just how much there is.
Well, Jake's going to teach us all about it.
It's not just only handing out things to folks who come in. It's getting the right kind of things that folks want to buy and then it's getting to buy, too. Selling them and selling them more. That's salesmanship, that's what it is.
Well, I guess Jake needs a little of that down at the Emporium.
Yes, I don't reckon he ever set the world on fire. It's just a store, that's all. Folks go in there when they want something that they think's Jake's got. There's more to running a store than that. You want to make them come in.
No, I don't think Jake would mind if business was better. He needs more money now since he's sick. and he has to spend a lot of money on doctor bills. Golly, if you get any good ideas, Mr. Silo or Mrs. Silo, you be sure and tell us all about 'em.
Oh, I will, Annie.
Well, I'll tell you what I think you ought to do, Annie.
What's that, Mrs. Silo?
Oh, try to brighten the place up a little bit. Jake always had that store of his all cluttered up, and it's kind of dingy, too.
Yeah. That's so, too. Seems to be an awful lot of dirt and dust around.
Folks like to buy in a nice, clean, bright, and airy place. They like to go in a store like that.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I guess one of the first things we'll have to do is clean the store up. Oh, what's the matter, Mr. Silo?
Oh, nothing, Annie. I was just thinking. I guess things are gonna hum at Simmons Corners when you two get started.
Well, we'll do our best anyhow.
Say, doesn't that sound exciting? And with Annie and Joe doing their best in Jake's store, I'll bet we do see business start to hum for the Emporium. Yes, sir. There's loads of fun ahead for Annie and Joe. And plenty of excitement, too. You just wait and see. And now, if all of you boys and girls haven't sent in for your Orphan Annie birthstone ring yet, listen carefully, because I'm going to tell you exactly how you can get this ring with your own special birthstone in it to make your personal birthday ring. Say, will you be surprised when you see how bright and shining it is? Because it's a genuine gold-plated ring finished in genuine 24-karat gold plate with a special rose gold finish over that. And what's more, it's an ring, so it's sure to fit your finger exactly right where you wear it. And just wait till you see the birthstone that's in this ring. It's a handmade simulated birthstone that was specially imported from Europe. And it has 42 facets or sides to it to make it shine and sparkle just like a real jewel does. And best of all, remember, Annie sees that you get your own special birthstone in your ring. Yes, sir, you get the right birthstone for your birthday month. For example, if your birthday comes in October, like Annie's does, she sends you a beautiful simulated rose zircon in your ring. And I just wish you could see all the other birthstones for all the other different months. There are simulated sparkling white sapphires for April, beautiful green spinels that look like emeralds for the month of May, and simulated fiery red rubies for everybody born in July. Boy, are they beauties. And remember, you get the right birthstone for your birthday month. And besides that, the birthday ring you get shows everybody that exact month in which your birthday comes, spelled out right on your ring, close to the stone. And in the same way, it shows the special birthday sentiment for your month. Say, can't you see how surprised all your friends will be when they see you wearing a beautiful ring like that? You know, we've seen some rings with imported simulated birthstones like these selling for as much as $2 to $4 in the stores. But you can't buy one of these Orphan Annie birthday rings anywhere because they were made up specially just for Annie's friends who drink Ovaltine. And then you can get one for only 10 cents in coin and just one Ovaltine aluminum seal. Just think of getting a big bargain like that, so don't miss it. But send in for yours right now. Remember, here's all you have to do. Just print your name and address plainly on a piece of paper. Next, put down your birthday month, showing the exact month in which you were born. Then just send it in together with all of that thin, round aluminum seal from underneath the lid of a can of Ovaltine, and also 10 cents in coin. Mail it to Little Orphan Annie, Chicago, Illinois. Or if you live in Canada, mail it to Ovaltine, Peterborough, Ontario. That's all there is to it. But remember, be sure to put down your exact month to have put in your ring. And be sure to put in the Ovaltine seal and also 10 cents in coin when you send your letter in to Annie. And then Annie will send you your beautiful gold-plated birthstone ring just as fast as she can. So get busy this very night and be here right on the dot tomorrow at 5:45, because nobody wants to miss out on the fun of our first day tending store with Annie and Joe. That'll be tomorrow at 5:45, remember. Until then, goodbye.
Another exciting adventure with Little Orphan Annie. Commercials did go on, didn't they? Wow. Roger Swearingen was our announcer. Mr. and Mrs. Silo, played by David Mann and Deborah Pining. Bill Obrich was Joe Corntassel, and Shirley Bell Cole was Little Orphan Annie. We've got lots more ahead of us on this special edition of our 25th anniversary broadcast of Those Were the Days. But right now, the mighty Metro Art Players.
Hello? Is this the ye old pastry shop? Yes, yes. This is Henry Barber. I want to order a cake. Yes, I have an account there. I have an account. Barber. Henry Barber. B-A-R-H-E-N-R-Y. B-A-R-B-O-U-R. You say I'm not in the computer. Never mind the computer, young man. Ask the manager. I've known him for 40 years. My entire family shops at your bakery. Why, certainly. Well, besides myself, there's Fanny and Paul and Teddy and Hazel and Daniel and Hank and Pinky and Margaret and Claudia and Nicholas and Joan and Penelope and Clifford and Skippy and Jack and Betty and Mary Lou and Janie and Elizabeth Sheridan and the triplets. Yes, yes. Now, young man, the cake must be large enough to serve 489 people. Eh? No, they are not my grandchildren. Young man, I'll not have you making fun of the size of my family. Very well then, cancel the order. And furthermore, I'm going to instruct all the members of my family to boycott your shop. I'll wager that you'll be out of business by the end of the week. Goodbye. Yes, there's no other bakery in town. I never should have agreed to accept the responsibility of procuring a cake, but we simply cannot disappoint all those nice people. Let me see. Perhaps I should call someone else on the refreshments committee. I know, I'll call that fellow in Summerfield, the water commissioner. Yes, there will be a cake for the people at the Those Were the Days anniversary party, or my name is not Henry Barber.
As we continue our anniversary get-together this afternoon, we're going to listen in to those battling Bickersons next. The Bickersons became a sketch on the Charlie McCarthy show. Don Amici and Frances Langford created the roles of Blanche and John Bickerson. Actually, before Frances Langford, it was Marcia Hunt for a few weeks. And they brought this into great comedy form. And later on, after they left, that sketch left the Charlie McCarthy show, they had their own show, and it went on for a long time. And of course, the sounds of the Bickersons has lasted through all the years. We have Herb Twory and Sally Dusky, both members of the Northwest Suburban Those Were the Days radio players group, playing John and Blanche Bickerson. Herb is in the draperies and textiles business in Skokie, and Sally is a real estate broker in Norwood Park. Our telephone operator is going to be played by Rosemary Swick, who is an actress doing commercial and industrial films and some voiceovers. She's also the bride of Wally Swick, our director. And our announcer is Jim Linden. I guess it's time now to tune in to the Bickersons.
Don Amici and Frances Langford as John and Blanche Bickerson in The Honeymoon is Over. The Bickersons have retired. Mrs. Bickerson tosses fitfully as poor husband John, afflicted with a rare form of insomnia, characterized by an incredibility to sleep on spikes, enters the crucial stage during an attack of the dread ailment. Listen.
It's like being married to a hot rod. This is the part he loves. That's enough, John. John, what's so funny? What is it, John? What are you laughing at?
What's the matter?
Oh, you're giggling like a tickled schoolgirl. What are you dreaming about?
Tickling schoolgirl.
What?
What's the matter, Blanche? What did you wake me up for?
Do you know what time it is?
No.
Well, it's 3:30, and you've been snoring steadily since 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? I didn't go to bed till 11.
No, but you fell asleep at the dinner table tonight, right in the middle of dessert.
Yuck.
Yeah, I think you deliberately fell asleep anyway, to avoid talking to me.
Well, no, I had a very tough day. I'm dead on my feet.
You never talk to me, John. Actually, you haven't said anything since you proposed to me.
I think I said too much then.
You're not the only one who regrets it, you know.
I don't regret it. I'm just sleepy.
Well, I don't need a building to fall on my head. I can tell by your attitude. You're not even pleasant when you're not sleepy.
Are you?
Yes, I am. Generally speaking.
You certainly are.
I am what?
Generally speaking.
You see? You're the one who always starts everything.
I'm sorry.
Sure, it's easy to say you're sorry now.
No, it isn't.
No. From the first day I met you, I've done nothing but suffer. You've always been a selfish, inconsiderate, lazy brute.
Then why did you marry me?
I didn't know it then.
You did too. Everybody knew it.
I could cry when I think of the way you've treated me. The first time I cooked a stew for you, the cat ate it up before you got home. I was broken-hearted, but did you offer me any sympathy?
Well, I got you a new cat, didn't I?
But the cat didn't die until a month later. It wasn't from my cooking. You kept putting bourbon in her milk.
Bourbon never hurt anybody.
It killed the cat?
That's because she mixed it with milk. I begged her to drink it straight. Blanche, I want to sleep.
It amazes me that you can sleep at all with your guilty conscience.
So what have I done now?
How could you, John?
How could I what?
How could you forget that it's my birthday next week?
Oh, Blanche, this is really getting silly. You'd better see a psychiatrist.
Well, that kind of talk won't help you, John. You're just trying to make me forget that you forgot to remember not to forget my birthday.
There must be a simpler way of saying that.
Well, you might at least have bought me a present.
I did buy a present. It will be delivered on your birthday. I'm having your name engraved on it.
No, what is it?
It's a genuine imitation alligator traveling bag.
Traveling bag? Last year you got me a cosmetic set, and the year before that you got me a set of encyclopedias. It isn't hard to see what you're thinking.
And what am I thinking?
I'm stupid, I'm ugly, and you want to get rid of me.
I never heard of such a thing.
Well, it's true, isn't it? I'm stupid and I'm ugly and you want to get rid of me?
I do not want to get rid of you.
But I'm stupid and ugly.
I didn't say that.
But you're thinking of me.
I never think of you at all.
Oh, don't yell at me. You're giving me that dreadful pain again.
What pain?
Oh, nothing.
Are you sick again? What pain? What are you talking about?
It's my head. I've had it off and on for the last 3 weeks.
Well, take it off now and go to sleep.
A lot you care about me. I'm warning you, John Bickerson, I won't touch your cheap old present.
It's a beautiful bag, and it set me back $8.
You know how I've been longing for some new clothes. Why don't you get your $8 back and add a little money to it and buy me an ermine wrap?
Add a little money to it? Do you know how much an ermine wrap costs?
Mel Shaw bought one for Louise.
What do I care? I can't afford a suspenders, so how can I buy you an ermine wrap?
Well, Mel Shaw makes less than you do, and he buys Louise ermine wraps and still manages to dress Natalie.
Natalie who?
Oh, you know what I mean. I want an ermine wrap.
You can't have an ermine wrap. You'll take the bag and like it.
Where will I travel with it?
I swear, as soon as I have enough in the bank, I'm going to send you on a trip around the world.
Maybe I don't want to go there.
Go where?
Around the world. Suppose I want to go someplace else. Besides, you'll probably send me on one of those horrid old banana boats with a lot of convicts rowing it. Anything to get me out of your sight.
I'm not sending you on a banana boat.
Oh, I can see the boat getting caught in a storm. A wave will wash me into the ocean. I'm going down for the third time, and you're cruising by on your luxury liner.
Blanche!
Oh, why don't you throw me a life belt, John?
Why don't you stop getting so hysterical, Blanche? It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've got to get some sleep.
You would have been asleep hours ago if it hadn't been for your snoring.
Can I help it if I snore?
Yes, you can. Dr. Hersey says you snore because you don't get enough exercise.
Dr. Hersey.
He says you should play golf or badminton.
Okay, I'll start next week.
You say it, but you won't do it. Do it now. Go on. Get up and play badminton.
Why, are you out of your mind? Who can I play with at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Call your girlfriend, Gloria Gooseby.
Oh, now don't start with Gloria Gooseby.
You'd love to play with her if she was willing.
She's always willing. And we never play badminton. I don't want to play anything with Gloria Gooseby. And I forbid you to ever mention her name again.
Oh, hush up and go to sleep.
Go to sleep, she tells me. Works me into a frenzy with bananas and badminton. Hates my present. Now she tells me to go to sleep. Sure. I'll never sleep another wink as long as...
John, the telephone. Answer it.
Hello.
Go to the phone and answer it.
Oh, never fails the minute I... Ouch! Hello.
This is the phone company troubleshooter. Did your telephone ring all right?
What?
The wires are down in your neighborhood and we're trying to trace the break. Can you hear me?
Huh?
Would you please say something to me and say it aloud?
Drop dead. I never heard of such a thing. That wasn't the phone company. That's a plot. Everybody wants to keep me awake.
Nobody wants to keep you awake, dear. Don't get so upset.
Don't get upset.
John,
Yeah?
can I have something instead of the bag?
If they haven't engraved it yet, what do you want?
I'd like the money instead. I need it for the rent.
The rent? There's $90 in the cookie jar.
No, there isn't.
There is too. I looked in there yesterday.
Oh, you didn't look today.
Well, now, Blanche, don't tell me.
I didn't spend it foolishly. I bought Christmas cards.
$90 worth of Christmas cards? What kind of insanity is that? I can't afford to throw away $90 on Christmas cards.
Don't scream at me!
I deny myself everything. I cut my own hair. I nail rubber heels to my socks so I can save on shoes. My shorts look like lace curtains. And she squanders $90 on Christmas cards.
They're not for my own use. You see, I'm going to go into business. I bought them for 5 cents a dozen, and I can get a quarter apiece.
5 cents a dozen? Let me see those cards.
They're lovely. They all have such pretty designs. I'll sell them like hotcakes. Here, look at this one. Read the poetry on it.
Let me see it. Season's greetings. Christmas comes but once a year, so let's hoist a cup of cheer. I hope you'll hear soon from Santy. Merry Christmas, dearest Auntie. Why, that's crummy. Let me see another one.
They're all the same.
All the same? 20,000 cards all for an aunt? There aren't that many aunts in the world.
Oh, I knew you would pick on me. All I'm trying to do is to make a little extra money so I don't have to ask you for it. You keep telling me how poor we are.
Well, you're just making us poorer. How could you throw away the rent money on such a stupid investment?
Well, maybe I made a mistake. I'm sorry, John.
Oh, well, what's the use? Forget it. Go to sleep.
Go to sleep, he tells me. I make his life miserable. I throw away his hard-earned money. I keep him awake all hours of the night. Go to sleep, he tells me. I'll never sleep another wink as long as I...
And she complains about my snoring?
I guess the honeymoon is over. There's a certain amount of realism to that, folks. Herb Twory and Sally Dusky were John and Blanche Bickerson, Rosemary Swick, the telephone operator, and Jim Linden, our announcer. We're having some fun this afternoon celebrating 25 years of old-time radio. We'll continue in just a bit, but first, the mighty Metro Art Players.
Good afternoon, Peavy. Well, hello, Mr. Gildersleeve. What can I do for you this fine day? Got any Sunday papers left? Right there, Mr. Gildersleeve. Oh, that'll be $1.25. I can remember when a Sunday paper cost a dime. Yes, those were the days. Speaking of which, Peavy, those were the days. The radio program is celebrating its 25th anniversary today. Yes, I know. I listen to Those Were the Days every Saturday afternoon. So does Mrs. Peavy. I turn it on here in the store, and Mrs. Peavy listens at home. Then, when I come home at night, we discuss the program over dinner. We listen at our house, too. Even Marjorie and Leroy. They learn what America was like 50 years ago. Stuff they don't find in the history books. And for us older folks, it's like revisiting the past. Well, the past is a nice place to visit, Peavy, but you wouldn't want to live there. Well, now, I wouldn't say that, Mr. Gildersleeve. Life was so much nicer in the old days. Peavy, you know what they say, these trying times we're living through are the good old days we'll be talking about 10 years from now. Well, now, I wouldn't say that either. Now, Peavy, the bakery is closed today, and I've got to get a cake for Those Were the Days anniversary party this afternoon. I could sell you a cake of toilet soap. This is no time for jokes. I've got to find somebody who can bake a cake. What about your maid, Bertie? Bertie's on vacation. I know what I'll do. Henry Barber passed the buck to me. I'll just pass it to somebody else on the refreshments committee. Let's see who's on the list. Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. Yeah, slapstick comedy team. They wouldn't know the first thing about baking a cake. Perhaps not, but if I were you, Mr. Gildersleeve, I believe I'd call them anyway. Even if they can't bake a cake, they might be good for a laugh. yeah.
The Days Radio Players prepares a reenactments such as these. We are working for many weeks in advance of the event, and of course we're getting some very special guest stars coming in to support us during our actual broadcast. But these stars are not available to us for several weeks in advance, so members of Those Were the Days Radio Players usually perform as stand-ins or understudies. And sometimes they have other roles in our events, but sometimes not. And we had an understudy for Bill Idleson while Those Were the Days players were working on their script. And he's Carl Hughes. Now, Carl was probably the only one of the Those Were the Days players hoping that Bill Idleson would not be able to come to our event this afternoon. But alas and alack, Bill Idleson did arrive, and Carl, the trooper that he is, said, "It's okay, I did my job." And that's the truth about the Those Were the Days radio players. Sometimes they have the major roles, sometimes a supporting role, sometimes they're in sound effects, sometimes they direct. They're all part of the whole. But Carl didn't get to do Rush in our Vic and Sade reenactment today, so I'd like him to stand up and take a bow. Anyway, Carl, will you stand up, please? It almost looks like we didn't have room for him on the stage. Carl is in the 8th grade at St. Andrew's School in Park Ridge, and he's going to be a freshman at Maine South in the fall, and he played in a reenactment of the Great Gildersleeve a year or so ago, the role of who else? We did give him a small part in The Lone Ranger a little later on, so he's all set. Right now, it's time for us to listen to Vic and Sade. Paul Reimer's great classic radio creation went on the air in 1932, went off in 1944. For most of that run, it was sponsored by Crisco, and the people at the Crisco company who had all the copies of the discs that sometime shortly after the show went off the air destroyed all those discs because they needed space. That's the downer. The upper is this reenactment of Vic and Sade. Fritz Michaelis, a retired school teacher from Arlington Heights, part of the West Suburban group of Those Were the Days players, plays Victor Gook. Shirley Aqua, a school teacher, also a member of the Metro Golden Memories staff from Morton Grove, from the West Central group, plays Sade. Our announcer is Bob Gorecki, and Rush Gook, recreating his original role from his home in Pacific Palisades, California, is Billy Idleson. Time for radio's home, folks. Vic and Sade.
Well, sir, it's late afternoon on a summer day as we visit the small house halfway up the next block. Young Rush Gook has just come home with a dog.
Doggone, I never seen an animal like this one.
He's so stupid.
No, he ain't.
Well, what's the matter with him?
Nothing's the matter with him.
He just stands there and looks. What's he looking at?
Well, I don't know. I guess he's looking at... What you looking at, boy? The gas stove? Huh? Looking at the gas stove?
Say, did you ever see a chipmunk?
I don't think so.
I never did either. I wonder if this could be a chipmunk.
He's a dog, I tell you. Won't you please quit making fun of him?
We're not making fun of him, son, but what makes him stand there like a statue?
Maybe he's dead.
Oh.
He don't look like he's breathing, and he don't move a doggone muscle.
Well, can't he stand still if he wants to?
Yeah, but hey, look at him for criminy sake.
He's smiling.
Doggone if he ain't.
He is smiling.
Oh, how'd you like to have somebody laugh at you? I know I like him. He's a very unusual dog.
He certainly is.
He's the most unusual dog I ever saw.
Can he bark even a little bit, Rush?
Not even a yelp. He's a very silent dog.
He's a very motionless dog, too. Do you realize he ain't budged an inch?
Ain't even moved his foot.
Well, he ain't going anywhere. He likes to stand nice and still.
Is the reason he don't bark because he can't bark? Or because he just doesn't want to bark?
Oh, Gov.
I ain't fooling with you, son. Honest to gosh, I can't figure that pooch out at all.
He can't bark.
How do you know he can't?
He tries every once in a while. Nothing comes out except kind of a whoosh, like this.
Well, Kenny, hey, look at him now.
Son of a gun.
Ain't he swell?
He lifted his eyebrow.
Sure.
Never seen such a thing.
He lifted his eyebrow just like a human.
Sure. He's a very unusual dog.
He looks like he's surprised about something.
He ain't, though. He just looks like he is.
How do you know he ain't surprised, Rush?
I don't think anything ever surprises him. Well, I don't.
I don't either, Vic. Just look at that dog. Looks like he knew everything there was to know in the whole wide world.
Uh-huh. That's what I think.
Well, looks like we got a new member of the family.
Yes, sir. It sure does.
What are you going to call your dog, son?
Albert R. Johnson.
Gonna call a dog that?
Sure. I made that name up myself.
What a name to give a dog.
That's his name, Albert R. Johnson.
But shucks, son. People don't call dogs things like that.
I know they don't, Gov, but you have to figure on the dog when you give him a name. I don't know no regular dog's name that'd fit my dog.
Why not? There's Spot.
He ain't got no spots.
Well, Shep.
That's the name for a collie.
Bowser.
Oh.
I guess Bowser ain't so good.
I wouldn't name a horse Bowser.
Curly? No, he ain't so curly.
Mom, he ain't curly at all.
No, he ain't. Well, Fido?
Oh, Fido.
Rover.
Oh, sissy name. No, his name is Albert R. Johnson.
Albert R. Johnson.
I think it kind of fits. This is a very unusual dog.
Doggone, say, I don't know, but he's right. Albert does kind of fit that much.
Why does it?
I don't know, but it does.
Sure it does, Mom.
Well, Albert R. Johnson is a very common name. You're liable to hurt somebody's feeling calling a dog that.
Oh, I don't think so, Mom. Albert R. Johnson is a nice, sensible, solid, respectable kind of a name.
Yes, it is.
Well, this dog is that kind of a dog.
Sensible, solid, and respectable?
Yeah, ain't he?
I guess so. You don't look very frivolous.
He sure don't. Looks sad.
He's thoughtful, Gov. He looks thoughtful.
Doggone. He ain't moved yet.
He'll move. He just ain't got any reason for moving.
And his name is Albert R. Johnson.
Albert R. Johnson.
That's kind of a long name for a dog, ain't it, Rush?
Yeah, I'm going to call him Mr. Johnson for short.
Hello there, Mr. Johnson.
Well, what'd you think of that?
Doggone.
See, he knows his name already.
He sure does.
What do you know?
And he smiled when he said it.
And lifted his eyebrow.
Ain't he a fine dog?
I'm beginning to like him better. My, what a foolish dog.
Oh, Mom, he ain't foolish. He's an unusual dog.
I hope the snort he is.
Don't you think you're gonna like him?
I anticipate a beautiful friendship between Mr. Johnson and myself. Yes, sir.
Why don't you walk him around a little bit, Rush?
I think he'd rather stand still, Mom.
He ain't moved anything but his doggone eyebrows since he's been here anyway.
Makes a person feel kind of peculiar to have a little dog around that stands still like a statue and just smiles.
Well, I'll walk him around for you, Mom. Come on, Mr. Johnson. Come on.
Don't believe he's gonna do it.
No, I don't think he plans on moving.
Come on, Mr. Johnson. Walk.
Nope, he ain't good.
Yeah, see?
Well, he is walking.
Come on, Mr. Johnson.
He even walks funny.
He's a very unusual walking dog. This way, Mr. Johnson.
He walks so dignified, like he's going up to the altar to get married.
He sure don't hurry.
Well, Mr. Johnson can go faster if he wants to.
Darn, I still ain't sure about I don't know much about dogs, but all the dogs I ever seen look like dogs.
Mr. Johnson is a dog. I know he's a dog.
I guess he's a dog, all right, Vic. See his tail?
Sure, there you are, Gov. Look at his tail. Ain't that a dog's tail?
Yes, guess it is. There's something funny about it, though.
What? What's funny about it?
I don't know. It don't move.
He could move it if he wanted to.
Looks like it's been froze and never got thawed out.
No, it's a very warm tail. Feel it.
No, some other time.
It's a very unusual tail.
Is there anything usual about that mutt? Hey, where's he going? Get him, Rush. Well, for God's sakes.
He walked right into the table leg.
Oh, Mr. Johnson, did you hurt yourself? Gosh.
He walked right smack into it with his head.
I'll rub it for you, Mr. Johnson. There, old boy.
Rush, he can't be a very smart dog. Run right into something like that?
Well, he didn't mean to do it.
How are his eyes? Maybe he don't see good.
He sees fine.
But thunder, dogs don't ram their heads into things like that.
Mr. Johnson was thinking about something. Heck, I've walked into buildings and things myself when I was thinking about something.
He didn't make a sound when he bumped his head. You'd think he'd squeal or something.
You would have thought.
Well, some dogs might.
Well, I gotta get dinner.
I get to keep the dog, though, don't I, Ma?
I guess. But take him outside or down in the basement or somewhere now.
Oh, let's take him out into the porch, Brush. I want to study him some more. The more I look at him, the more I wonder what the dickens kind of doggone thing it is.
Come on, Mr. Johnson.
Don't let him run into anything.
I won't, Ma.
Be back pretty quick, Sadie.
All right, Vic.
Come on, Mr. Johnson.
Come on, Mr. Johnson.
The mighty Metro Art Players.
Hey, yeah, Bert! What do you want, Costello? What suit you wear at those birthday's anniversary party? Never mind that. How's the cake coming along? It's all done, Abbott. I just took it out of the oven. Are you sure the cake is done? Sure, I'm sure. The recipe said to stick a knife and fork into the cake. If it comes out clean, the cake is done. So? So I stuck a fork in the cake. The fork came out clean. So I stuck in all the other dirty silverware. I'm already beginning to have my doubts about that cake, Lou. Did you decorate it with 25 candles like you're supposed to? I couldn't find the candles. I put in a 25-watt light bulb. Ah, Costello. There's supposed to be writing on the cake. Those were the days. Did you do that? I did my best, Abbott, but I had a hard time getting the cake in the typewriter. Costello, you dummy, that cake must really be a mess. You should see the typewriter. Well, I'm afraid we blew it, Costello. The folks at that anniversary party won't have any cake at all, unless we can find somebody else to bake one. So who else on the refreshments committee? Well, there's only 3 names left. Humphrey Bogart, Sidney Greenstreet, and Peter Lowry. Abbott, if those guys were smart enough to track down the Maltese Falcon, they shouldn't have no trouble baking a cake. All right, I'll call them right away. As for that cake you made, you might as well toss it in the garbage. Oh, no, I ain't not going to toss it in the garbage. I'm going to wash my car with it. Wash your car with it? It's a sponge cake. Oh, get out of here, Costello. Let me get the telephone call.
Back in the middle 1930s, Edgar Bergen was waiting in the outer office of Rudy Valley because he was looking for a job on the Rudy Valley radio show. And the receptionist had told Rudy Valley that there was a ventriloquist out here who wanted to see you being on your radio show. Rudy Valley said, we can't. What are we going to do with a ventriloquist on the radio? It's impossible. And she told Edgar Bergen that Mr. Valley wouldn't see her. And he said, I really want to see him. I think my act would go good on the radio. And she said, no, he doesn't want to see you. So Bergen sat there day after day for a long time. And in the morning, Rudy Valley would come into the office, and at the end of the day, he'd leave the office, and Edgar Bergen sat there. Finally, Valley couldn't resist what was going on out here. The man had determination, so he asked him to come in. And he talked to Edgar Bergen, and Bergen said, I would like to be a guest on your show doing my ventriloquism act. And Valley was about to tell him off that this was not going to work when all of a sudden one of those little light bulbs went off over Valley's head and thought, this isn't going to work on the radio having a ventriloquist, and Valley was a shrewd operator, I can get a lot of publicity out of this sort of thing, having a ventriloquist on the radio. So he hired Bergen for a broadcast. And he was a hit. He was a big hit. Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy in front of a studio audience working on the radio, and he was a big hit. And the newspapers the next day talked about this new act that was on the radio, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. And the radio reviewers talked about that new team, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. And so the next week, Valley had him back, and the studio audience was filled with people, and the studio audience saw Edgar Bergen and his dummy, Charlie McCarthy, but they would not believe that that was a ventriloquist dummy. The people in the studio audience thought it was a midget. And the people in the listening audience would not believe that it was one man doing both of those voices. And for all the years that Edgar Bergen was on the radio, a few months later he had his own show for Chase and Sanborn, and he was on radio from 1937 to 1956. For all those years, listeners at home really felt that there were two people there, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. And I really think there were two people there, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Those were the Days Radio Players version of Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy in the person of Bob Isaacson. One man as Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Bob has turned his love of show business and ventriloquism into a fascinating second career. Frank Greenwood, who is a retiree from Round Lake, Illinois, is going to perform as W.C. Fields. Frank is a member of the Lake County group. Bob, incidentally, is a member of the West Central group, and he hails from Oak Park. And our announcer is Jim Linden. Let's tune in to the Charlie McCarthy Show.
The Museum of Broadcast Communication proudly presents Edgar Bergen, his guest W.C. Fields, and...
He may start with school the longest way around, wind up in a pool the other side of town. Whenever you have trouble, call on him to mow him down. Tommy is his name.
Oh, I'll sneak around when he gets here, yes indeed.
All right, young man.
Huh?
You'd better stay right here where you are.
Yeah?
Yes, indeed. And I think I hear Mr. Fields coming.
Oh. Oh, are you sure he's coming, Bergie?
Yes.
You're kidding me.
No. Yes, it is.
What?
Yes, it is, Charlie. It's W.C. Fields, all right.
Uh-oh. Can you see him?
Well, I can see just a little bit of him.
Yeah?
I can see him sticking his nose in the door.
Sticking his nose in the door?
Yes.
Oh, well, then it'll be 5 minutes before he gets here.
Where is that little mahogany?
Oh, Jiggers, calling Dr. Kildare. Let me out of here.
I left my matches at home. I want to get that little totem pole a hot foot. Oh, tell him, man, pile of sawdust. Hello, Edgar. How are you?
Oh, hello, Mr. Fields. Hello.
Where's the little woodpecker snack bar?
Well, now, Bill, I can explain everything about that incident.
Well, explain why your belligerent little bundling board perpetrated an act of sabotage by stretching a wire across my garden path.
Yes, I'd be glad to do that. You see, it was perfectly innocent, Bill. You see, he was setting a skunk trap. That's what he was doing.
Oh, a skunk trap. That's fine. That covers everything. Thanks for the compliment.
Well, I didn't mean it that way.
That's okay. Nevertheless, the other evening, as I was traversing my garden in search of flora and fauna, Flora's my cook, you know.
I see.
A likable young lady. Makes wonderful crepe Suzettes.
Yes, well, I believe all that, but that's really none of my business.
Well, I was walking along when I unexpectedly tripped, and the next thing I knew, I was prostrate on terra firma.
Oh.
Which was not unusual in itself, but the circumstances were.
Yes, I believe all that. But, Bill, let's get back to the skunk trap, remember?
Yes, I see what you mean.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, it was quite an experience. I broke my femur and fractured my decanter.
Well, now that sounds rather serious, Bill.
Yes, it was. I hurried to the hospital. Clang, clang, clang.
Clang, clang, clang. Yes, I remember that.
After 2 days in the hospital, I took a turn for the nurse. Worse.
That's a mistake.
Yes, it is. It's the secretary.
Yes.
They took some beautiful x-rays of my leg. 6 reels of them.
6 reels. That's fine. A feature, eh? What did they find, Bill, in your...
Just as I suspected, Edgar. They found my leg was hollow.
Oh, is that so? Tell me, Bill, were you running a fever, too?
No, I had some trouble with my blood pressure.
Oh, I see. Rather high?
90 proof.
Yes.
But a wonderful place, that hospital. Very comfortable beds.
Well, that helps, too.
Even had mattresses on the walls.
Oh, I see. They made you feel right at home, did they, Bill?
Yes, they did, until I suffered a nervous breakdown.
Don't tell me you had a nervous breakdown, Bill. Oh, that's awful. Well, Charlie certainly has caused you a lot of trouble, hasn't he?
Oh, I don't blame the little fella, Edgar. I love him. He's all right.
Yes.
Even though my fall caused a pulled tendon, Paget's disease, double vision, and a bad case of pernicious dandruff.
No.
Not to mention low go with the Mayo go and ruffle of the duffel.
Oh, now wait a minute.
Complicated by a slight case of misantip and Pfaffendill and a slipped sacroiliac.
No, a slipped what?
Sacroiliac.
How do you spell that?
Say SACRO hyphen. From then on, you're on your own.
You know, Bill, it's really a wonder that you recovered from all that.
Yes. The Crokers had given me up in despair until one day they discovered I had passed a crisis.
Oh, I see. So now it's crises, is it?
Yes. It's a technical word.
Yeah. Well, what day was it when you passed this crisis?
The day they found me blowing the foam off my medicine.
Well, when Charlie learns of this, Bill, he'll be very sorry. I know he'll be sorry, and I just want you to know, Bill, that he's ready and he's willing to apologize.
Oh, that's quite all right, Edgar. As a matter of fact, I'm very fond of the boy.
Yeah?
Where is the little fire hazard?
Well, I think I'll call him in, Bill. Just a moment. Oh, Charlie!
He's not here.
Oh, well, yeah. Now, Charlie.
Yeah?
I want you to know that Bill is right here.
Yeah?
Yes, and he knows all about it.
Uh-huh.
Now, Bill, Charlie wants to talk to you.
Eh?
Yes.
Oh.
No.
Good evening, Mr. Fields.
What'd he say?
I said good evening, that's all.
Let's not jump at conclusions.
Now, Charlie, I've been telling Mr. Fields that you want to apologize. Now, isn't that right?
yes, it is. Yes, I do, Mr. Fields, I do.
Well, that's just fine, my little chum. There she goes with that typewriter again. Tell me, little man, why did you set a trap in my garden? Don't you know there aren't any skunks there?
No skunks in your garden, Mr. Fields?
No.
I'm sorry.
No wildlife, with one possible exception. The place is occasionally infested with a herd of pink mastodons.
Pink mastodons? Oh, elephants.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, well, I hear that the elephants around your place take aspirin to get rid of W.C. Fields.
A lovable little nipper. Is it true, Edgar, that Charlie can trace his ancestry back to old Chestnut Stump, the abode of a family of polecats?
This is like the old days, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah. Remember how we used to fight, Mr. Fields?
Yeah.
Foolish, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, my little friend, but we're above that sort of thing now.
Yes, those were the good old days, weren't they, Bill?
Yes, remember the time I said I'd slice you into a Venetian blind?
Yeah.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah, remember how I topped you by saying that makes me shudder? That was good, I liked it.
Who said you topped me?
I topped you.
Why, the only laugh you ever got was a sneer from a disgruntled termite.
Why, you keep that up and you'll return to the hospital.
Careful, my little friend. You know wood pulp is on the priority list.
Oh, yeah? Well, listen, you long-nosed anteater, I ought to just...
Now, wait a minute, gentlemen. Please.
Well, Bergen, I'm afraid Mr. Field just doesn't love me anymore, that's all.
Don't tell me I don't love you or I'll break every knot in your body.
Now, wait, please. That's the wrong attitude, Bill. Why can't we be friends? Now, what do you say, Charlie?
Okay. I'll make one more attempt at appeasement.
Yes.
Then I'll fire on sight.
You'll do nothing of that kind, Charlie. You're going to be nice to Mr. Fields.
Well, he doesn't like me.
Why, I idolize the little chap. I'd do anything for him.
Would you, Mr. Fields?
Why, I'd be glad to do anything the little chap craves.
Well, Mr. Fields, I have a new bicycle, you see.
Would you like a bell?
Well...
I can't. I'm not affluent, but I can buy you a bell.
Well, that's nice that I have a bell. But I was just wondering if I could borrow... I don't suppose it'd be right.
Yes, it's all right. I love the little child.
No, it isn't.
Go
right.
ahead, ask me, my boy.
Well, could I borrow your nose for a tail light?
There he goes. So you see, Edgar, it's no use.
Well, Bill, it's only the mischief in the boy. That's all it is. That's what makes him say those things. Why, Charlie is his own worst enemy.
Not while I'm around, he's not. And he borrowed my nose for a tail light. Why, I'll fill him full of lead and use him for a pencil.
Let go of me, Bergen.
Now, wait a minute.
I want to hang one on him.
No, you don't. Now, stop it. Remember, Mr. Fields is not a well man. Are you, Bill?
No, that's right, Edgar. I've been a fragile thing of beauty ever since I was born.
Why, you weren't born, you were squeezed out of a bar rag.
The Charlie McCarthy Show with the Bob Isaacson as Edgar and Charlie and Frank Greenwood as W.C. Fields. Incidentally, a little later this summer, Bob Isaacson is going to be honored by the International Ventriloquist Convention as Ventriloquist of the Year. One of the most essential ingredients of the great radio days was the sound effects man or sound effects persons. And they helped bring those wonderful pictures into our imaginations. And we, of course, have a team of good sound effects people working for us during our Those Were the Days reenactment today. I'd like Steve Dilley and Elliot Malicio to stand up and take a bow. There's Steve. There's Elliot. Steve is a mechanical engineer from Wheeling, is with the North Suburban and the Lake County groups, and Elliot is a computer operator in Chicago. He's with the Northwest Suburban and Norridge groups. You see, the sound effects people, they're very versatile. They work in all the different groups. Well, we come now to the final program in our get-together this afternoon. This is a program that we used to listen to every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6:30. My dad would come home from work at 6 o'clock. Dinner would be on the table at 6:01. My mother and dad, my brother and I would have dinner, and Ken and I were just a little bit anxious to get through with it so we could rush into the living room and get in front of that Zenith radio to tune in to the Lone Ranger. And what an exciting time it was to listen to the masked man and his faithful Indian companion. Those were the days. They really were. Peter Heimsoth of the Keebler Company in Lombard, West Suburban Group, is going to play the Lone Ranger in our reenactment. Jim Linden, who's been an announcer a couple of times here, he's a rhetoric and English teacher at Hinsdale Central High School. He's from Burr Ridge. He's with the Chicago South Group. He's going to play Butch Cavendish. Captain Reed is going to be played by Jerome Steffens. He's retired and he's enjoying an active retirement. He's from Chicago with the Chicago South Group. Bob Gorecki, Marriott Food Services in Chicago, from the West Central Group, is going to play Collins. Bill Isaacson, the brother of Charlie McCarthy, the brother of Bob Isaacson, is going to play Tonto. Carl Hughes even gets into the scene a little bit in a character listed in our script as Man. And, of course, recreating his original role from Boston, Massachusetts, is our announcer, Fred Foy. Let's tune in now to the Lone Ranger.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver, the Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again. Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fellow. Hi-yo, Silver. Away! This is the legend of a man who buried his identity to dedicate his life to the service of humanity and country. It is the story of the origin of the Lone Ranger. Early settlers in the West had to be brave men and women, ready to fight for their lives at any moment. There was danger on every side. There were wild beasts, savage Indians, and the Cavendish gang. Butch Cavendish headed a pack of outlaws. They struck without warning to steal and kill.
Open fire on that wagon train. Wipe them out to the last man.
The Cavendish gang attacked ranches and towns as well as wagon trains. Everyone feared Butch Cavendish. His gang grew rich and powerful. Finally, the Texas Rangers learned where Butch Cavendish and his gang were hiding. 6 Texas Rangers guided their horses along a canyon floor to arrest the Cavendish gang. Presently, Captain Reed signaled a halt.
Rein in, boys. Whoa. We'll wait here until the scout returns.
Do you think it was a good idea to send our guide Collins on ahead?
It was Captain Reed's younger brother who asked the question. The captain explained that Collins, who was not a Texas Ranger, was the only man who knew the country and who could scout ahead for information. Then, while the Texas Rangers waited for the guide's return, the captain said to his younger brother,
"My wife and son are coming from the east. If something happens to me and you survive, well, I know you'll take care of her and Danny."
"Right.
"I'm going to call on you to resign from the Rangers and work that silver mine we staked out. See that my son and his mother get my share."
"I promise."
Here comes Collins, the scout.
Whoa, whoa, steady.
"Well, what's the word, Collins?"
"Good news, Captain Reed. It's all clear. I scouted the rim on both sides of the canyon and found no sign of the Cavendish outfit."
"All right, boys, let's go."
"Get up there. Get up there.
Get up, get up, get up.
Collins, the guide, lagged behind, unnoticed by the Texas Rangers, who moved in single file along the floor of the rock-strewn canyon. They didn't know that Collins had lied, that Butch Cavendish and his killers were waiting in ambush on the rim on both sides of the gap.
Here come those Rangers, boys, just as Collins told us.
Yeah.
We can get down to the floor of the canyon without going a long way back, and it'll be dark in half an hour, so we can just keep pouring lead into them from up here till we're sure they're dead. Then we won't be taking any chances. Now, open fire!
The Rangers leaped from their saddles and spread out as they returned the fire from both sides of the canyon. Soon, 4 of the Rangers were killed. Captain Dan Reed and his brother, wounded several times, kept fighting side by side. No! Then the captain fell, mortally wounded, and a moment later, his younger brother. The last of the Rangers slumped to the ground. The outlaws waited and watched for any sign of life from the Rangers.
Come on, boys. Let's get out of here.
Then rode away, convinced that all 6 men in Bryant's Gap were dead. Sunset came, then darkness. That night, an Indian examined the bodies by moonlight. After examining 5 men, he muttered softly,
Them dead.
Then he came to the 6th man, the younger brother of the captain.
And this man, alive.
The Indian lifted this man tenderly in his strong arms and carried him to a nearby cave where he bathed and dressed the wounds. Then he took a spade from one side of the cave and returned to the canyon, where he worked steadily until the dead men had been buried. Returning to the cavern, he sat watching through the remaining hours of the night. Daybreak found the Ranger stronger, but by nightfall the wounds had become infected. The Indian called on all his knowledge to treat the wounded man. He went day and night without rest. It was the morning of the 4th day when the Ranger opened his eyes. And for the first time, the Indian saw them clear and calm.
Are you awake? Me glad.
"Yes, but so weak."
You wounded bad.
I remember an ambush.
That right? Me find in canyon. Carry you here to cave.
It's daylight.
Get bornin'.
Oh, and I must have been unconscious all night.
It's several days since fight in canyon.
Several days.
Ah.
There's something familiar about you.
You remember? Many year ago, you only boy. You find Indian boy in trouble. You save life of Indian boy.
Yes. Your name is Tonto.
That right.
Years ago, you called me Kimo Sabe.
That right. And you still Kimo Sabe. It mean faithful friend.
Tonto, there were 6 of us in that canyon. The others. What about the other Rangers?
Other Ranger, all dead.
Dead?
Ah.
One was my brother.
You only ranger left. You lone ranger.
The Lone Ranger. Tonto, those killers know me by sight. If they know one man escaped, they'll look for him.
Them not know one escaped. Tonto bury 5 men, make 6 grave. Crook think you die with others.
Good. Then my name shall be forever buried with my brother and my friends. From now on, my face must be concealed. A disguise, perhaps, or a mask. That's it, a mask. I'm the only one who knows about the Cavendish gang. And with your help, Tonto, I'll get every one of those crooks.
In the ranger's eyes, there was a light that must have burned in the eyes of knights in armor. A light that through the ages lifted the souls of strong men who fought for justice, for God.
I'll be the Lone Ranger.
Don't touch that dial. We still have to hear from the mighty Metro Art Players. Have a seat.
Mr. Spade, come in, sir. Come in. Give me your hat. Hello, Gutman. Who's your friend? Allow me to introduce my colleague, Mr. Joel Cairo. How do you do, Mr. Spade? How do you do? Now, let's talk about that cake. Let's. Mr. Spade, what do you know about Those Were the Days? Some kind of radio program, isn't it? Very good, sir. And the cake we've asked you to bake is to be served at the Those Were the Days anniversary party this afternoon. I told you it's to be made of the finest grade of flour, sugar, milk, eggs, and spices, covered from top to bottom with the creamiest frosting. The cake will be adorned with 25 candles, one for each year of Those Were the Days run on the air. Yeah, well, your cake is in this box, Gutman, but I'll give you fair warning. I had a little trouble. It was impossible for me to follow the recipe. What do you mean? In the first place, it said, take a clean bowl. What other trouble did you have? The eggs made the cake look a little lumpy. Didn't you remove the eggs from the shells? No, the recipe said use whole eggs. But Mr. Spade, sir, the eggshells should never be put into the cake batter. I was misinformed. Gutman, you fool, you imbecile, you fathead, you bloated idiot. It was your stupid idea to ask Spade to bake the cake. I told you he wouldn't be able to do it. Don't you guys know when you're being kidded? I don't understand. I was just having a little fun with you. Your cake is in this box, here. Just as the Maltese Falcon you brought us turned out to be a fake, Mr. Spade, I suspect that this is a fake cake. It's probably made of lead. Open the box and take a look. Gutman, it's a beautiful cake, a beautiful cake. It appears to be a cake, but we'll make sure. Yes, scrape off some of the frosting with your penknife. It's a genuine cake, Gutman. It's a beautiful, fluffy cake. There will be a cake for all the old-time radio fans at the party. Mr. Spade, you're an amazing character. That you are, sir. You're an amazing character. Thanks to you, our story has a happy ending. Gutman, let me lick the frosting off your knife. It's so very sweet and rich and smooth. Mr. Spade, please. What are the ingredients in this frosting? It's the stuff whipped creams are made of.
Mr. Ken Alexander. And Ken Alexander writes his own material, too. Well, that's it for now. The old clock up here on the wall of the Grand Ballroom of the Swissotel on Chicago's lakefront says we have to bring this special event to a close. Our sincere thanks to Shirley Bell Cole, Bill Idleson, Fred Foy, and Those Were the Days radio players for all their talents and charms, to our friend with 1,000 voices, Ken Alexander, to our recording engineers, Jim Zaremski and Rick Garofalo, and to you out here and out there in Radio Land for making it all worthwhile. Special appreciation to Bruce DuMont and the Museum of Broadcast Communications for making the 25th anniversary of Those Were the Days so special. Thank you. This is Chuck Schaden. Thanks for listening.